Welcome to the show, homies. Well, we're in the middle of what they're calling an extended winter freeze. That means the housing market has stalled, and especially if you're a first-time homebuyer, things can feel tough out there. Today, I have a really exciting interview for you that's going to provide some motivation, inspiration, and of course, all the tools, tips, and tactics that you're looking for to buy a home. I get to interview a unicorn. You guys don't want to miss some of these crazy stories. It starts off bonkers right off the bat, and then we keep going, and eventually we get into some things that can help you guys figure out how you can use this first home to be the foundation and the base for you being stable in the future and getting more control over your life. So here comes a unicorn interview. Play that music.
How to Buy a Home educates, protects, and connects first-time homebuyers to local qualified realtors specifically for first-time buyers. Whether you're looking for DIY information or personal step-by-step guidance, How to Buy a Home is your #1 resource for first-time homebuyers.
What is happening, my homie party people? I'm so excited about today because I've got one of my unicorns in because he and I, we talk all the time and we were just chatting all things real estate. And I was kind of talking to him and oh my gosh, his story is so amazing. I had to share it with you. So, homies, this is Chris. What's up, Chris?
What's up, David?
Let's jump right into it. So you're a realtor right now working there in Austin, Texas, and you're doing your thing, but tell us all how you got started and when you figured out, oh my gosh, real estate might be cool. Because your story's pretty awesome.
Yeah, so I've been a realtor for 25 years and a broker for about the last 17 years here in the greater Austin area. And when I was attending the University of Texas and working my way through school here in Austin, I was paying my bills as a bartender. And we got a house off campus, my buddies and I, so that we could have a little bit of a party house and have our own space. And so, I was the quote unquote responsible one who paid the bills and had the bills in my name. And our landlord, like many landlords, insisted that we get that we send her one check every month instead of 4 or 5 checks from all of us, different Yahoos at different times on different dates for different amounts. So roommates would pay me, and then I'd put it in my bank account, and then I'd pay the landlord. So that also, by default, kind of made me the point person to talk to the landlord whenever something was happening at the property. And one day she called me about 3 months from the end of our lease. She said, "Hey, Chris, I just want to let you know that we're not going to renew your lease this year." And I said, "Oh, really? What? Why not? We've been good tenants. We pay our rent on time." And mind you, she lived in Houston, not in Austin, which is 2 hours away, and hadn't been to the house in 2 years and didn't know what it looked like with a bunch of college guys living in that house. So she said, "Oh, no. It's nothing like that. You guys have been great tenants. I've just decided I'm going to sell the house." And I said, "Oh, okay. Well, what are you going to sell the house for?" She told me, and I said, without thinking, "Well, I'll buy it for that."
How old were you?
I would have been 19 at the time. No, I'm sorry, 20. I was 20. I was 20.
Oh, well, that makes 21. It better.
Yeah.
That means you knew more.
Yeah. So I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't even know if I could get a loan. The only credit I had was from one credit card, which was a lousy Discover credit card that I'd gotten at spring break down at the beach because they were giving away Frisbees or something like that, and that we wanted to throw the Frisbee around. But I was making okay money. I was splitting bills between myself and 4 other dudes. And I was bartending in the evenings and going to class during the days. So I did have a little bit of cash. I had no idea if I could buy the house. But my dad had a friend who was a mortgage broker. I called him and I said, "Hey, John, I want to buy my landlord's house." And he said, "Okay, well, tell me about it. What's going on?" And so I gave him the lowdown, and he did his magic and ran my credit. And he said, "Okay, Chris, well, there's just one problem." And I said, well, what's that?" And he said, "Well, you've got the cash, but you don't have enough credit." And I said, "Oh, well, what do we do about that?" And now I would have said, "No problem. I'll just have my parents put me on one of their credit cards they've had for 20 years. And boom, I'd have been able to buy the house." But I didn't know that trick back then, right?
The authorized user.
Yep. Right. So what I did was I went to my parents and I said, "Hey, guys, I want to buy this house. I've already got tenants. I know I'm gonna cash flow, but what I don't have is I don't have the credit, and I need you guys to co-sign with me. So they agreed to co-sign with me, and they co-signed, and they were on the note for 14 months. And at the 14-month mark, I had 14 months of payment history, and I was able to take them off the loan at that point, and just took over and never had any issues. And you know what? I never told my roommates that I bought the house because they never would have paid me rent on time and they would have torn it up. And and I raised the rent the next year.
Yeah, that is the greatest part of this story. Okay, I'm going to let everyone digest that he never told the roommates and he raised the rent. That's awesome. But I will go back for just a tip. You didn't have a lot of credit. You got a cosigner. I have a lot of people that don't want a cosigner. Now, so some people don't want to have their parents cosign because they want to do this on their own. They want the separation, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes nowadays that might have to do with income, how much income you make. And maybe that doesn't shift as much in 14 months. But you brought up a great point. Having a mortgage payment on your credit, that completely boosted you like bonkers, right?
Right.
So that's what pushed you up so that in 14 months you could get them off the loan. That's
Correct.
Unbelievable. Wow. Okay. So you did that. You hijacked your roommates. Do they know?
About 5 years later.
So let me ask you this. Have they ever hired you as a real estate consultant or are they still bitter?
I've represented every single one of them except one who married a realtor.
Okay. Now that part I didn't even know. That's the best.
Well, he married a realtor because I told her she should be a realtor. It's like she was trying to figure out what she wanted to do, and I was like, you make a really good realtor. I think you should consider real estate. And so now they've bought. Now of course that buddy has done really well, and they bought a ton of really expensive real estate. I haven't gotten to represent them on any of it because she did it.
But the rest of the roommates ended up using you because they figured if this guy could figure this out at 20 years old. Continue on. So tell us how, because the one thing that I've been telling everyone right now, especially in the early part of 2025, is that, it's going to be a weird year. No one knows what the predictors are all over the map, right? I mean, we're sitting here just trying to figure out what's going to happen. And the best thing we can tell people is stop trying to time the market because the best way you can do well is your time in the market.
That's right.
Because historically, we're going to keep going up. So once you got your first taste, continue on with the rest of Chris's real estate journeys.
Okay, so that house, which I still own today, is worth in excess of 10 times what I paid for it. I have started multiple business ventures and real estate deals off the equity in that house, and then been able to put the equity back in that house through home equity lines of credit. I have been able to get a very lovely SBA loan to buy a business for my wife that I would not have been able to qualify for if I didn't have the equity in real estate that I have. And I've got on and purchased other pieces of real estate, always thinking about the long-term horizon. I think that it is very easy to think inside the box in real estate and get hung up on cash flow and what is this investment doing for me today, rather than what is this investment going to do for me in 10 or 15 or 20 years, particularly if you have a longer horizon. So, for instance, there's a house that I bought about 15 years ago that is in a very lovely neighborhood, expensive neighborhood, but it's a small, ugly house. And I've just been renting it. But when I bought it, I knew that the size of it and the configuration of the lot, because it's kind of like a pizza shape, so it's got road on three sides of it, I'd be able to subdivide that property someday. And so this year, I just started this process last week, actually, and engaged an architect. We are designing up plans to build 3 structures on that parcel, subdivide it, and sell them off for a massive profit. So it's not just about what it's doing for you today. It's what is this going to do to set me up for retirement down the line? And oh, by the way, somebody else is going to help you pay for it if it's investment property. They're paying your loan off for you.
It's so intriguing to me because there's so many other people out there talking about investing in real estate. And I kind of shy away from talking about real estate investing on this podcast because I want people to make sure that they just do the big individual first-time homebuyer purchase correctly. I have ventured into talking to people about exactly what you're talking about. If you have goals, aspirations, desires down the line, the fact that at 20 years old, you bought the home, and right now the average age for a first-time home buyer is 38 years old. 18 years of rent, monthly times 12, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, potentially up to $1 million that could have been used. And what I try to explain to people is it's not just the rent replacement strategy that means that you're going to be putting money into yourself. If you do it early enough, you've got this little pot of gold that you've been drawing from. I mean, I can't believe all those things that this one piece did for you.
Yeah, I've leveraged it into half a dozen different pieces of real estate through the years.
And that's by using a home equity line of credit to get the down payment on something else. And then as profits continue, now there is, the other concept that people use when they have multiple rentals that they will do a 1031,
Yep.
but you're paying back and basically like having a savings account that you draw up, or like a credit card that you draw up and then you pay it, way back down so you can use it again. Is that the theory that you're working on?
That's right. And I haven't always used home equity line of credit. Sometimes I've done cash out refinances, depending upon where interest rates were and what the deal looked like, and what I thought the right strategy for when to actually pay the funds back and how to pay the funds back, or if to pay the funds back.
And that's a strategy that now when we're sitting at, this morning it was 7.25%. And I think this afternoon I saw it at like 7.1. All the predictors are saying that we're going to get to 6.
Yep.
Of course, the news over the last couple of weeks with inflation and the jobs report being high, we don't know how quickly that's going to happen. But if that does happen, I think a lot of first-time homebuyers aren't in the game enough. And so they just think, well, I'll refinance and get that lower payment. Keep in mind, like Chris is talking about, you have the option potentially to not only get a lower payment and a lower interest rate, but maybe do a combination of a cash out and getting the lower payment.
Yeah.
And as long as the tax laws stay the same, everything that you're doing with any kind of home equity line of credit, all that interest is tax deductible.
That's absolutely right. And just as an example of that, this particular property that was my first purchase ever, my interest rate on that property when I purchased it was in the mid sixes. Today, my interest rate on that property is 3.25.
Wow, that's incredible. Now, I don't know if anybody's going to be able to get back to 3.25, but heck, you and I in 2018, I mean, I remember when I started in real estate back in 2006, and I quoted someone a 6% interest rate through a lender, and they practically kissed me on the mouth because we were dealing at 7 and 8% for so long. So then let's get even crazier with this concept, because there's no one better to talk to about this than you. If I have some, really hyper super planners that are potentially in college, listen to this podcast. What do you recommend to anyone who's in college, or perhaps investment people that are looking to purchase around college campuses? What's some of the formulas in the playbook for having an investment rental? What are the pros and cons, or the pros of having an investment property near a college? I know you guys, what is it, like the greatest college campus in the world, supposedly, the Texas, everyone talks about it. So I know you have a very, I'm assuming that the Texas people love their college campuses, but there are other college campuses somewhere in the world, just so you know.
Yeah, so there are definitely pros and cons. Con, you're going to have more. You're going to have more turnover. You're likely to have tenants for no more than 1 or 2 years, which means you're going to be making repairs more frequently, and you are going to have more vacancy, therefore a little bit less probability. And people and college students are a little bit rougher on real estate than people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. The other side of that coin would be that, for instance, the subject property that we were talking about, when I bought it, it was in a university neighborhood. It is not anymore. That has become a neighborhood of families, and that is because the University of Texas demographic has changed since I went to school there. It's a much harder school to get into now. And they built a bunch of new dormitories on campus. And so it is no longer a university where people want to be off of campus and having a good time. It's a university where people want to be on campus within walking distance to the library because the demographic has changed. So it can be, there can be some pitfalls there. Now, the upside of that is that you are very rarely going to sit for months without a tenant. And you're going to be able to predict the cycle every year because you know when the students are moving in and when the students are moving out. And I don't know if it's like this across the country, but in Austin, because the university is so large, it actually drives the housing market and it affects neighborhoods that aren't even university neighborhoods. But landlords have realized that if they get on the cycle that matches with the university, they're going to have, because of the ripple effect from the university through the years, you have more people who move that time of year. So in any of the rental properties that I own or manage, we're able to typically get a little bit more money for them in the summer months and leading into the university year than we are if we're putting it up for rent in January or February or March, just because we have a larger pool of potential renters and there's a little bit more competition and supply and demand kicks in there.
That makes perfect sense. And one of the things I've found with the college rentals is, although they are rougher on it, the actual expectations of what it needs to look like is not necessary. You don't have to. I mean, have you seen a college dorm? I mean, it can be pretty basic.
Yeah,
And then not to mention the fact that, like you said, you will have turnover, but there's much more of a guarantee of a rent when you're talking about families or student loans paying for and helping pay for the rent every month, as opposed to an individual family that could suddenly lose their job.
that's right. And one of the things that you also do when you or have university real estate that you're renting to college students is you require their parents to co-sign. So you actually have more security with a college student on your rent actually getting paid and security deposit being covered than if you are just renting to a traditional family with 2.3 kids and one or two incomes. All it takes is one layoff and suddenly they've got a serious problem, which means you
Man.
have a problem.
Yes, indeed. Well, I think that a lot of times there are so many people out there that are selling the get rich quick scheme, especially when it comes to investing in real estate. Hearing a real life story from someone who then went on to become successful in the business, I know that you can't play the investment game using your own first property until you get your own first property. Obviously, you're one of the unicorns out there helping people in your specific area who are looking, whether it's near the college or all around Austin. What have you been seeing? 2024 was a rough ride for first-time home buyers. So now I'm going to switch gears and get into my unicorn mode with you. Where are you at? Where's your head? Anything you're thinking about first-time home buyers? I'd love to pick your brain.
Yeah, I mean, carpe diem, first time home buyers. You
Yeah,
actually
baby.
have some inventory out there. Seize the day. You
Mm.
actually get to go out and shop and select what home you want to live in rather than play the lottery of what home you're going to get under contract. And I guess that's just what you're stuck with. Don't have analysis by paralysis. You've got to get out there and start talking to your professional and your team, talking to you and getting advice from whatever resources you have. Although I would encourage folks to listen to the professionals, not the people who have simply bought a house before and they're your parents, so they think they know what they're talking about because they probably don't. Talk to the people who have been doing it, for a long time and do it all day, every day. It's kind of like, it's kind of like asking your cardiologist for advice about your kidney. Well, he may have gone to med school and he may know a little something about it, but you probably want to talk to the guy who actually specializes in your heart, not the guy
Yeah.
who happens to know a little bit about the heart. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be a good year. I think we've got a lot of FOMO on the sidelines that's chomping at the bit. We know that we've got a lot of first time home buyers that are ready to jump into to home ownership. We've got a bunch of people on the sidelines who bought the home they could get under contract back when the market was white hot, not the house that they wanted. They're ready to get out of that. We know we've got baby boomers who are ready to downsize and are going to be choosing to live in different types of accommodations than they're currently in. And just from my own little myopic world and what I see, the phones are already ringing more this year than it did last year. It's like we were talking before We got started here, the two deals that I put together this week. And I'm hearing that anecdotally from my mortgage brokers that I work with and other realtors that I know, or my junior agents who work for me. It's been the longest housing recession that we've had since I think the 1950s, if I'm right on that stat. And it's people are ready for it to end. The reality is people are still having kids. People are still moving out of the house. People are getting divorced. People are getting married. People are, having to deal with tough issues like disease and the passing of a spouse. So it's going to be a better year in real estate. I think we sold 3 million homes in this country last year, and we're anticipating we're going to sell about 4 million homes this year, although National Association of Realtors says 4.5, but it's probably a little bit rosy. But it's going to be a better year, probably about a 25% increase in total volume sales. And then next year, I think is going to be absolutely insane. And so I think this is the opportunity year for first-time home buyers who may not have a whole bunch of cash to compete with people who do have a bunch of cash or going all cash. And you get to actually pick something you might actually like to have for a long time. And really start to build true wealth over your lifetime, so that when you get on in years, you have it very easy, have mailbox money come in or travel or do whatever it is that you want to do because you made the right decisions and the right investments along the way to set yourself up financially in retirement or before. I have a client who works for an automatic gate company. He came to me, he called me off a yard sign, and I sold him his very first house about 15 years ago. He now owns 8 homes and is a multimillionaire working a $60,000 a year job.
Wow. So many people will reach out to me now and they'll be like, hey, what's going on with the market? I want to try to time the market. And then, unfortunately, because of the fear that's going on, with the last election cycle, everyone talking about housing affordability, they decide, well, I can't buy in Austin. I can't buy in Seattle. I can't buy in Denver, but I want to be like that automatic gate guy. So they start looking to try to buy cheap investment property in other parts of the country. I'm not saying that's not a viable option, but considering the fact how much rent you're going to continue to pay that goes to not you, the concept of sitting down and working with someone. Now, if you're listening to this and you're going, great, now, but what if I can't buy in 6 months? Hear what Chris said. The potential for this year and next year is going to be greater. That demand that we haven't had since the 50s, that demand is real and it's out there. And you throw on top of that population increase, plus the one thing I say over and over again on this podcast, the low inventory and the lack of building. If you have that individual property under your belt, if there are compromises, concessions, if you end up getting a condo or a townhome instead of that dream single family home, the options down the line, because you have a game piece already, create so much more opportunity for you as a first-time home buyer. Now, I'm talking to people about, checking in with the new year to see if there's new down payment assistance programs. The average down payment for first-time home buyer, it's still between 8 and 9%. I know that most of mine are using 3% conventional or 3.5% FHA loans. I just had a discussion with someone who had 20% down on 750, and they decided to go 10% down so that instead of putting $150,000 down, they could put $75,000 down and keep $75,000 in the bank. And that offered them some comfort, especially because they were talking about buying in Florida, who's had some natural disasters recently. Are you, when you're working with first-time home buyers, are you finding most people are coming in talking about the 20%, or are they looking to use the low down payment and kind of leverage that against so that they can afford, since the prices and the interest rates are pretty high right now?
Well, I think it depends on how informed they are, right? I mean, a lot of first-time home buyers come to me and are shocked to find out that they don't have to put 20% down and that they can put as little as 3 or 3.5% down. And the name of the game is get in when you can. If you try and pick the perfect time, you're going to fail at doing that too. I mean, that's almost impossible to do in any investment vehicle. But at some point, you got to put a stake in the ground and start building the railroad tracks, or the railroad's never going to get to you. And so, don't look at it like I got to do this perfect and exactly right. You can take dead aim at your foot and miss it if by buying real estate.
Yeah,
More millionaires have been created on this planet as a result of the real estate industries and the construction industries than all other millionaires combined.
absolutely. I want the people out there who, if you're eventually going to buy a home and you just stay in that home forever and you use it to trade up, wonderful. The sooner that you get into it, the sooner that you have options. So, what do you tell someone who comes to you right now who says, "I'm renting in Austin for $2,500, and I don't have any savings yet, and my credit's at about 650." What are you going to be doing for them to help them get the process moving forward?
Yeah, sure. Well, first, we're going to sit down and we're going to put together a budget for them. And we're going to figure out where they are spending money, that they don't have to be spending money, and where are the opportunities to start saving. So we're going to look at their subscriptions, right? We're going to get them set up on a platform like Rocket Money so they can start seeing how much money they're actually spending on subscriptions. We're going to talk about how much money they spend on non-essentials. And we're certainly not saying, "Oh, you can't ever go out to eat again." No, no, no. That's just let's figure out how much you are actually spending on that to make you aware, because most people aren't aware of how quickly the pennies actually add up. And I would say that probably 8 times out of 10, when either a homie comes to me or another first-time home buyer that is referred to me, we're 8 times out of 10, we are doing it faster than they ever thought we could do it. And usually by a significant amount. I mean, frequently people are coming to me going, "Yeah, I think this is probably, 3, 4, 5 years off. And, their lease is up in 6 months and we're house hunting in 3 because they have been educated. They understand it is easier to do. It does not require the large sum of money that the general population has been led to believe it requires. It's actually not hard as long as you have the right team. It's actually pretty simple. It's not rocket science.
I could not agree with you more. Uh, Absolutely. And for the homies out there, here's what you can do. You can call Chris right now. Or you reach out to me if you need someone somewhere else in the country. You can get someone, even if you think you're 12 to 18 months out. Why? Because we probably know that because of just the way this works and our couple decades each of doing this, that most people wait too long to reach out. And a lot of times they do it just because they're nice. They don't want to bug us, which is hysterical. But someone like this, someone who's a broker, someone who has people that works for him, is still going to have a conversation with you, even if you say you're a year and a half out, because we understand most of the time you might be closer than you think. And if you're the 2 out of 10 that aren't closer than you think, we're going to help you get there by giving you simple steps that you can do, because it's not rocket science. We're going to work on your credit score, your debt, and your savings and help push you along. I could not have made a better commercial myself, especially because you're that wonderful combination, someone who understands from life as the bartender who pulled the wool over the eyes of his roommates and saw the beauty of what being a first-time home buyer could do for you, to now someone who's helping people all the time and making a living out of this, which is such a wonderful thing to be able to do. So I appreciate it, bartender Chris. Any other last words of wisdom? I hate putting you on the spot, but
I would just further the point of, don't be afraid to make a mistake. I made a massive mistake when I bought my first house. I didn't get it inspected.
oh
Right?
my gosh.
Learned about cast iron the hard way. Oh, that stuff has a lifespan, needs to be replaced. So I made a mistake. It cost me some money. But the amount of money that I've made off that house, despite making a terrible, horrendous mistake when I bought it, is just way outweighs the mistake and the cost of the mistake. My life would be so different if I hadn't started investing when I did. And I don't think anybody should ever sell a house unless they have to accumulate them. They're only going to become more valuable. They're only going to get harder and harder to get your hands on as this new economy with the BlackRocks of the world investing in mom and pop real estate. We're in a very dangerous position to where we could become a nation of renters over the next 2 generations. And the ripple effects on the economy and people's retirement is going to be massive. We know the difference in wealth with people who own real estate when they retire versus people who don't own real estate. Set yourself up for a happy retirement. Know you're going to be taken care of. Know that you're going to have everything that you want, and most of all, peace of mind. And one of the easiest ways to do that is investing in real estate as long as you have the right team.
There is about a year and a half ago, I did a podcast episode on the potential of us becoming a renters society, a renters nation. And one of the ways to protect yourself against that, one of the ways to protect yourself against inflation, one of the ways to protect yourself against economic downturn is to be a home owner. Every other investment that you have in life is extra money. A home is money that you already have set aside, thousands of dollars every month that you were going to have to pay for your shelter anyway. Imagine this. Imagine that we're heading towards a renter's economy. Imagine that all those Blackstone and all the big Wall Street people continue gobbling up, and that the apartment landlords continue raising rents. If you're an individual that owns a home and you did it with a unicorn, someone like Chris, who is going to be able to walk and talk you through it, and you need a year to plan for it. So most people will take that year, plan for it, get in the house, and then go, okay, now I'm going to sit back and just ride the equity. Well, what if a month later, after you own the home, you and Chris sit down with the lender and say, okay, let's start doing two plans. Plan one is maybe in 5 years, we sell this house, take a gigantic piece of equity and buy a bigger house, because then we want our forever home. And that's all we want in life, David. No problem. But what if you go number two? Hey, you just did this for a year. You know how to budget. You know how to do this. Let's do it again. Now, maybe we'll only do it at 10 or 20% of what we were doing before, but start building again. And then you hit the magic secret button. You don't have to sell your house to get the equity out of it to buy the next one. There's always the potential of using that home equity line of credit. I love it. I love it. This has been so amazing, starting with the fun story that I just had to share, and now moving into this. Thank you so much, Chris. We appreciate everything that you do. And homies, if you want unicorns like this, go to howtobuyahome.com and reach out to me. And we'll get you in touch with all of these fantastic people who are doing it right, even if the first time they did it, it was a total accident. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it, buddy.
Lots of creative ways to buy real estate. Just get a chip in the game.
I love it. Thanks, man.
All right. Thanks, David. Appreciate everything you do for the first-time home buyers out there.
Incredible interview. Thank you so much, Chris, for bringing us that great information. Did you guys hear how he still owns that property and it's worth 10 or 15 or 20 times more right now? I think he said 10, so we'll stick with that. But the big thing that I heard in that interview was that as he got going in his life, that first home, the one that he made his college roommates pay for without them knowing, God, I love that part of the story. That home helped fund a new business venture. We talk a lot about how buying your first home means you finally get control over your life. No more rent hikes, no more landlord selling the house from underneath you, no more apartments selling and jacking up the rents crazy. This is about the ultimate control, keeping that first property for as long as you can, and eventually it funding the rest of your life. Whether you sell it and take all the equity and do something with it, or whether you keep it like Chris did. So if you've got questions, everything's at howtobuyahome.com. You can get the starter kit there. You can ask me a direct question, and yes, it will be me answering, not an AI robot. Or you can just go, David, I'm ready. Let's get a guide. Thank you so much for listening today and hearing this awesome unicorn story. Thanks again to Chris. And as always, homies, you can do this.
Looking for more DIY education or your own personal step-by-step guidance through the home buying journey? Since 2019, How to Buy a Home has been the #1 resource for first-time home buyers. So visit howtobuyahome.com to get started.